Welcome to the Spirit of a Badass, where we celebrate stories of courage, hope, and resiliency. I am your host, Alecia Jacobson.
Hello, my badasses. How are you today? I hope you are well. I hope you are better than well. I hope you are fucking awesome. I hope whatever it is that you want right now in life, I hope that shit is on its way to you. Today we're going to talk about goals. Now, I've kind of I talk about goals, but I've kind of gotten away from it a little bit. Sometimes I get kind of pissed off about things. And I mean, goals are what I do, like legitimately day in, every day, day in and day out. I talk about goals with people. I set my own goals. I have an acupuncturist that I go to, and she gives me all these vitamins, and these vitamins are going to make me feel really fucking good, right? But I have an old lady pill box. I have to take them morning, noon, and night. Sometimes I have to take them 4 times a day. And this is like not 3 times a day. It's like a handful. And I'm not exaggerating. It is like a handful. And even though I feel really good, sometimes I just get so annoyed by the task, even though it's simple. I just get a little annoyed that I just don't do it. And I think that's kind of how sometimes I feel about goals. But I was kind of thinking about, you make the goal, you plan the goal, because the bingo episode that I did, I've been getting a lot of messages about how that has impacted and how it kind of unlocked a different way of thinking for some people, and how people are being with it and how they're doing it. And I'm getting pictures, which I love, love, love. And I was thinking about that. And in one of my groups that I do, we had kind of some discussion about it, and there was some follow-up to it. And I thought, a lot of times you don't have the opportunity for the follow-up. Now, in my coaching and in my groups, there's built-in opportunity. It's part of each session every time we meet, following up about the last week, month, whatever, because that's what we do. It's hard to go forward and accomplish the things you want to accomplish if there's no reflection and forward planning. So it's all baked in, right? But when you're out there doing your life and doing the things, sometimes it can get tricky. So we are in March when this is going to air. If you set some New Year's resolutions, if you set some 2025 goals, if you did the bingo card, sometimes life gets a little cray-cray and you forget about it, right? So one of the tools that you can do is the after goal, and that is making a plan for what happens after you set the goal. It's like a check-in. It's like your yearly pap smear, right? Or maybe it's not yearly. I don't know. But like your checkup. You go in, let's say a dental cleaning. Well, I don't know if that one's any better. I hate going to the dentist just as much. But you do it, and it's a checkup, right? So we kind of have to do the same thing with our goals, because sometimes shit gets different, right? So a couple of things we're just going to meander through today is how to be with goals after you set them, and really how to do it with intention. So it's planned into what you're doing. You have a plan to check back in with yourself to make sure you're on track, make sure that the goal still aligns with you, anything that needs to be shifted, right? So to do this, one, you have to be aware of the fact that lots of times we decide we're going to go out and do something. We set the goal. We're real ambitious. We get a little bit of like ants in our pants energy. And we're like, fuck yeah, I'm going to go do this thing. And then like 2-3 weeks later, usually it's that 3-week mark, especially if it's a tricky one. You look back and you're like, shit, you kind of forgot about 5 days ago and you didn't really have a plan, right? Totally normal. This is what happens. So the goal I would have for you is to make the plan for the after goal. So you set the goal, right? What is your follow-up? What kind of check-in system do you need? Is it helpful for you to check in every morning? I have a lot of people who have a morning routine and ritual that they sit down, They go over their goals, they make their intention for the day, and they have a few questions that they ask in order to sort of direct their energy for the day. I have a more weekly system. I've talked about that in my family meeting episode, where my husband and I get together, we talk about our goals, we reflect on the week past, and we reflect on the week ahead. Now, this is a good one just to show you. We used to do it on Sundays. Now, because life's a little crazy, we do it on Friday. So we do one for the upcoming weekend because the weekends are fucking bananas now. And then we do another one on Sunday, which sometimes now has to be Monday, depending on if I'm traveling with sports and club sports, things like that. We do that one for the week ahead, just to keep us on track. Now, we went a little off the rails for a few weeks in a row before we realized, oh, the system that before was flawless is no longer flawless. It's no longer working. We need to adjust the system. So that's what I'm saying. It's not just like abandon ship. It's how can we adjust? How can we work with what is working and then add or subtract or just do something a little bit different? Because fundamentally it was working. We just needed something a little different. So having these sort of awareness and check-ins with yourself. So that was weekly. Sometimes it can be helpful monthly. It seems obvious to do it on the first of the month. Reflect back to the month prior. What went well? What didn't work well? What are you working on? Whatever the questions you want to ask yourself. And then look ahead. What do you want to happen in this next month? I told you when I was doing my goals for this year and my vision board, I actually did seasonal. So looking at mine, this will be my last month in my seasonal vision board. Where the hell am I in it? Right? And then also at the same time, looking forward, how do I start preparing myself for that next one? So that's an option also. And then you have the yearly. I heard, I don't know where it was, something I listened to, a book or something, and they talked about every year on their birthday was the year to sort of reflect. Are they doing the things in their life that they want to be doing? Are they living the life they want to be living? Now, that's a little bit different than your goals, I really think. I think that's a more like core value, who you are. Are you in alignment with who you actually want to be? Or are you over here, fucking off on TikTok, not really paying attention to the world or life or whatever it is that's important to you? Like, what are the things that are actually really important to you? And does your calendar reflect that? And they use their birthday. There's all sorts of ways that you can incorporate this after goal into your life. And really, there's no right or wrong way. This is what works best for your life, what works best for the systems that you currently have in place. If you have no systems, then great. Let's start creating some. In that, I said earlier how someone that I work with was asking questions. I think this is such a underused tool that can fucking like 10x whatever it is that you're doing. Because the people I know that do this, they are so on point. I like to think of, like, you hear people say like on track, fell off the wagon. Like, I truly don't believe that stuff. I think of goal setting and goals in life sort of as a highway. And sometimes you have to take the exit ramp. Sometimes you have something come up that you need to get off the highway. And if you have systems in place, that is not a get off the highway and next thing you know, you've driven to the other side of the country and you're in the fucking ocean. It's a get off the highway, tend to the thing that needs to be tended to, and you have a plan and a system in place so that you have your GPS to know, oh, here is the on-ramp to get back on to where I want. Or, you know what? That is no longer taking me where I need to go. I'm going to do a little detour off-road here and get to where the other place I decide. But if there's nothing in place for you to even have these thoughts and conversations in your head, then you just, I don't know where the hell you are, some field someplace back in the 90s with your Boone's farm. Oh, it was so much fun back then. So much fun back then. Anyway, questions to ask yourself daily. I'm going to give you a few examples just to like prime your mind a little bit, but I need you to go out and find the ones that would be helpful for you. Now, the people that I work with, a lot of times they're doing this daily to make their focus for the day, but you can do this again. There's no right, wrong way to do this. It's maybe you come up with a couple and you try it in the morning. Maybe you have an alarm set on your phone because anytime we start a new thing, it can be a little tricky to remember it consistently, and you try it. And if it doesn't work, means nothing. It means maybe you need to do it at night. Maybe that would be a nice time. Maybe a slow Saturday morning is the time for you to make a weekly focused intention. But really releasing the stress and the needs to look a certain way type attitude and just try it fucking out, you know? It's not that intense. Just practice. So a couple of the things that have recently kind of fallen into my world as far as questions is, what can I do today to work towards my goals? And in doing that, that was in reference to the bingo card that some of you did. If you didn't do it, it was a really fun way to incorporate different kind of goals, like more fun. And it took you out of this kind of very regimented way of goal setting and kind of, I have to do it, and this is my plan to do it, kind of a little intensity to it, to a very romantic and playful way to be with things you want to add into your life. So what can I do today to work towards my goals? And in doing this, you would probably sit down, or maybe you turn it over in your head while you're doing your yoga for the morning, or you're stretching, whatever it is that you're doing, journaling, and you look at the bingo card, or you look at the goals that you have for, again, day, week, month, and think, what can I do today? What's going to move me closer to it? The thing with the questions is, my goal for you would be that they're like an invitation. It's not coming through shame or guilting you through it, or this is what I have to do today. It is a lovely invitation of, what can I do? How can I be with this? The other one somebody said was, and this is one I've talked about before because I think it's such a good question, is, what can I do today that would make me proud? Now, another one that somebody that I was working with had, and this was her reflection at the end of the day, was, what did I do today that made me proud? And if you can think of, first of all, the idea of being proud is a really interesting one because it can be tricky for a lot of people. I did notice that myself when I was doing the bingo card, because it's like sometimes the things that would make you proud might be really hard. And sometimes that might mean you're overthinking it and you need to simplify it a little bit. But you can see how one uses it to direct her day, and one used it to reflect on her day and making sure that she was looking for the spots in her day where she showed up for herself, or showed up whatever it was that did make her proud, and then writing it down. Now, it doesn't mean you have to write it down. When you write things down, you're probably more likely to, follow through on it, but maybe you're a person that doesn't need to do that. And then another one is, what can I purge today that is no longer serving me? I thought that was just like, holy, that is something. And that might be one of the things on the bingo card, was, what can I let go of? And looking at your life, maybe there are other people's kind of the thinking what other people thinks of you, or other people's voices or expectations turning around in your head. And maybe it's, how can I have one spot today not take on somebody else's expectations or thoughts? Where can I let that go? It could be, where do I want to direct my energy today? How do I want my energy to be? I recently read, if ever I say I read something, it was on TikTok. I'm sure a lot of you are like that. But I recently saw a TikTok, and she talked about a sprint week, which I was like, fuck yeah. I love a good sprint. I'm a sprinter at heart. I love going fast. I love sprinting. I love that really intense energy for a short burst of time. And that is something that my question for it started last Thursday, I think, is, how can I sprint today? What does sprinting today look like? And it was different each day. And it had different areas of my life each day. But that is my directing question it goes through this coming Thursday, is where can I sprint today? And what's happening if I'm sprinting? So there's all sorts of ways that you can play with these questions, but really what it does is it kind of guides you into your goals, and it does it in a very inviting and soft way versus a very kind of, I think, a way that we've all been taught how goal setting and having goals is rigid and you have to stick to it. And if you don't do it 80% of the time, it's fucking failing. Like all these things. Do it your own way. I mean, there's so many different ways. Yes. If your goal is weight loss and you're given like 20% effort, well, that's not gonna sorry. But a question for that could be, what does weight loss look like today? Where can I put my energy today? If I'm showing up as my best self, my future self, that in 6 months from now is going to be lighter or be stronger, what does that look like today? And that could be different. That could look like I'm not going and having a burrito and I don't know what the hell, chips and salsa. I know I love me some chips and salsa. Just so you know, for this story, I will always have chips and salsa. I will never not. But if this was the goal, it might be I'm going to have the, high protein chicken taco salad, light on the sour cream, whatever, doctor it so that it's within your goal frame, versus it could look totally different. Like, it's beautiful out right now. I'm going to go for 2 walks and meal prep. And, it looks different depending on where you are. But the question allows you to have the framework for your day. And there's all sorts of ways that you can do that. So those are just a few of the ways that you can use questions in your after goal process and how you can use them to stick and stay on the path that you want to be on without this sort of intensity, but keeping you in line with where you want to be in a very, I don't know, I just don't have fucking time for, I don't have time for crazy anymore. Like I love intense energy, but I don't have time for these there's no rigidity in me right now. I am just loosey-goosey, flowy. Yeah. If you need it, take all the rigidity and structure that you want. I've had too much of that in my life, so I shall not have that right now. All right. And then the other thing, in addition to having a check-in system, having some follow-up questions for yourself and deciding first what those questions are. Maybe you have a list of the questions. When are you going to ask yourself the questions? The next one is, have you or your goals changed? Now, this won't necessarily be a weekly or maybe even monthly one, but this could be a 6-month check-in. Are the goals that you set out to have, are they still something you want? Because sometimes the person that set the goal is not the same person of today. You could have learned something. Life could have completely shifted, because life will shift like that on you without notice. Okay? And if you're still plugging away at something that really you give no fucks about, you are just wasting your time, my friend. You are wasting your time. And sometimes what can happen is these goals have become so much a part of your identity, your image, outward or inward. They can be so intertwined with you. And if you don't have these check-in times, this would be a nice yearly one on the birthday. And giving yourself this is permission granted. This is the expectation is I'm not going to be the same person that I was 2 years ago. I mean, if you're the same fucking person, then we need to go to the before goal and set some different goals. There's no growing then, right? And that doesn't mean that your core values don't need to be the same, or maybe you want them to be the same. But if you're not evolving, well, it's kind of fucking boring. So having the expectation that somewhere along the line, this is going to shift, giving yourself permission to be okay with the shift, and then saying, okay, that's interesting. I wanted this. I really, really wanted this. For instance, me, I really wanted to have a brick and mortar gym. Really, really did. And I did for a very long time. And then all of a sudden, I started waking up. I didn't want to have one anymore. I didn't want to do it. And I was so like, what the fuck? What the fuck? Because this is who I am. This is what I do. This is who I am. This is what I've wanted for the last, I don't know how many years. And knowing that, oh, wait a second, this is okay. And I need to pay attention to this. I don't need to judge it. I don't need to try to like forcefully make myself do it because it's what I know and it's what I've always done. Looking at it with like, okay, if this is no longer what I'm being pulled towards, if this is no longer what I want to do, what I want to be putting my energy and my effort and my money and all the things in, if I don't want to be pouring into that, what happens? So there's such a different perspective shift when you go into something with the expectation that things are going to eventually be different. You will be different. Life will be different. That's totally okay and expected. And even though when I started waking up, like it was probably 2 years ago exactly now, because I remember it was in February. And I just started waking up and I was shocked because it legitimately came out of nowhere, at least from my perspective. And I still don't know where it came from now. So it's not like I'm saying that. Now I'm like, oh, I know exactly, where that came from. I have no idea, but I didn't judge it. So I was still kind of like, it came way out and just smacked me, but I didn't judge it. It was, oh, I know that this is a time, this is what happens. Then I'm not the same person. I was really working on not proving myself and not having to be something in order to prove my worth. That was something that I had been working on for at least a year leading up to that. And I do know that one of the reasons that I built the gym was sort of to prove that I could, to prove my worthiness. And I know that that was intertwined. So maybe there was some healing moment that happened. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. What matters is I didn't just run from it. I was like, oh, well, looky here. Look what we have. How can I ask some questions? How can I maybe talk to people? So don't freak out when you shift, because it can be big. I mean, that was my life essentially, other than my family. That was a big, that had a lot of people involved in that one. Or it can be small, as in you're a runner and maybe it doesn't bring you the joy it did anymore. But maybe you got medals lining a full ass room in your house that you, up until 6 months ago, were so motherfucking proud of. And now it's like, they're cool, but maybe that's not who I am anymore. Or maybe you have an injury and you have to shift. And it's, how do you shift with that? Knowing that, okay, the goals that I had don't work in my current life. And that's okay. Life changes so often. And it's, how can we ride the wave of that? How can you plan for that to happen with this sort of after goal plan? Scheduling check-ins for yourself. What does that look like? I will say, if you don't plan for after setting the goal and these check-ins, you will not remember. So what I would offer you is that when I don't know when you're listening, if you're driving, don't do it when you're driving, but that you set alarms or set dates on your calendar. The calendar one works really well for most people. And you set them on your calendar. So let's say it's your birthday and you set a "do I fucking love my life" reminder. And every year on your birthday, you block off some time, or the week leading up or the week after. It doesn't have to be, again, we're not getting crazy with this, okay? But you block off time to look at, what are you spending your life doing? Do you want to spend the next year doing the same thing? Or do you want to do things differently? You want to shake it up a little bit. You want to change course. Okay. Maybe you realize, oh, I've just been doing this because it's what I've been known to do. And that actually doesn't, we're going to Marie Kondo this. It doesn't spark joy anymore. Okay. So take some time. Think about, how do I want to follow up? First of all, what are the goals that you maybe want to follow up on? And then put those times in your calendar, or you will fucking forget because life happens very quickly. Okay. We get sidetracked and we forget. Not sidetracked. We just do life. We're out there living, right? And if we don't write things down, we don't put them in our calendar, we don't set the timers, then we forget about them. Also, if the questions seemed good to you, I would say just spend some time writing down questions. You don't have to use all of them every day, but just kind of spend some time. If you are a journal person, this would be a great journal opportunity. Figure out whatever way you want to be with these questions, but using them, practicing them different times and see how it works. Super easy, super low stress. We don't need to fret about it, but the outcome from them in your day is really cool. Oh, and one other thing. Let's say you do it in your morning, part of, let's say 5:30 in the morning. You ask your questions, you put your brain on an intention or you put your brain on a focus, and then all of a sudden it's 3:00 and you're like, oh, dang. I said I was going to do that. And the day has gone and I didn't do any of it. I didn't even think about it because the dog started barking 2 seconds after I thought the thought. And the next thing you know, day is beginning, right? That does not mean that it won't work for you. All that means is the next day, you're going to give it a go again. And maybe you set an alarm for whatever opportune time you have during the day that's not during a meeting or something. Maybe you have a watch that can have an alarm on it. And you put the question or whatever so that you can bring your attention and your focus back to it. Okay? No judgment here. All right? Just keep practicing. It's all just practice. That's all I got for you today. Just consider what the after goal process looks like for you. How would you be best served by incorporating a couple of these tools into your life and then practice them? And if it doesn't work or you forget, that's okay. Just try again the next day. And maybe you say, okay, that didn't work. So I'm going to implement an alarm. Or I like this app. It's called Habit. And it will remind me at the end of the day or whenever I set it that I did my habits. And part of my habits is this morning kind of ritual. So there's all sorts of different ways. And we have so much technology now. You can do Post-it notes, whatever works for you. But do something and then just play around with the systems, because if it hasn't worked yet, likely you just haven't found the right system for it. All right. Have a fabulous day. See you. Thank you. All right. We are in our badasses in the community today. I am here with Katie Smart. She is a wife and mother of 2 young children, a boy who is 11 and a girl who is 6. She originally is from Verona and attended UW-Madison and now lives outside of Oregon, Wisconsin. For a long time, Katie has felt passionately about preventing gun violence, but it wasn't until 2021 that she decided to take action and volunteer with our local Moms Demand Action chapter. With Moms Demand Action, she is currently a Wisconsin State Be Smart lead. Welcome, Katie.
Hi, thank you. It's great to be here.
So the goal here is to get people out there involved on something that kind of tugs at their heart, where they have like an inside pull of, yes, this is where I want to put my time. So tell us about your organization that you're working with and what kind of people are involved in it.
Sure. Yeah. So I am a volunteer with Moms Demand Action, and we are a national volunteer group that works to reduce gun violence across the United States. There are many facets of the organization, but the one that I volunteer with in particular, as you said, is Be Smart. And Be Smart is an educational program designed to remind adults, teach adults, inform adults about the importance of secure firearm storage, in particular to keep firearms out of the hands of children. And so when we look at Be Smart, the SMART is actually an acronym. So it really breaks it down into 5 very easy steps that both gun owners and non-gun owners can do and can take to help protect all of our children. So if we look at the S, that stands for secure all guns in your home and vehicles. M is model responsible behavior around guns. A is ask about unsecured guns in other homes and vehicles. I really like the A because it's something that, if you have a small child or even a teenager and they're going to somebody else's house, it's opening up that conversation with the other parent to say, hey, do you have guns in your house? And if you do, are they locked up? It can be an awkward conversation to have, but in my own personal experience anyway, the more you do it, the easier it is. Or, you do it over text and it's not so bad. But I think that's a really important one. Like I said, very easy one to do. The R in SMART is recognizing the role of guns in suicide. We know suicide is a problem. We know that children and teenagers are very impulsive. And so again, it's just securing those firearms so they can't get into the hands of children and teenagers, because we know a child or a teenager would never have a gun if it didn't first pass through the hands of an adult. So it's really putting the onus on adults for that secure firearm storage. And then lastly, the T is just tell your friends and your neighbors to be smart. And so we're really working hard to spread this Be Smart message in the community, really with any organization that might interact with children, work with children. So if we think about school districts, for instance, that is a really big one. And we've been trying to partner with school districts in the area to help spread this message. And that, of course, is just one example. There are many organizations that work with children and work with parents. And so we really are trying to spread the word out there about this.
Yeah. So how would, if somebody's listening and they're like, oh, I would love this message, because you go in to organizations and schools, how does that happen? What's that connection there?
Yeah, we have done all different types of approaches, I would say. We have done meetings. If folks will take meetings with us, sometimes it just starts maybe through an email outreach, or maybe it's somebody in your community that maybe is on the school board, or maybe knows a school board member, or knows a connection in the school or in the police department or wherever it might be. So it's really just trying to see, who do we know? If we don't know anybody, who can we start reaching out to just to get the ball rolling? And then, of course, never giving up. So, guns can be a topic that folks don't want to discuss, but it is so important. And this message is so important. And so we are just always advocating. We're always out there trying to get people to listen to us.
So if somebody is listening and they're like, oh, I would like you to come in, your message is geared towards adults or geared towards children?
Great question. It really is for the adults. It's putting the onus on the adults to keep firearms secure, which is not to say don't have a conversation with the child about what to do if they come across a gun. Of course, that's important, but ultimately, it's not putting the responsibility on a child to be safe around that. It's how do we protect them in the first place so they can't get their hands on it.
Mm-hmm. All right. So if somebody says, yes, I want to get involved in this, how do they do it?
Yes. So it's very easy. They can just text SMART, SMART, to 64433. That will get you connected to our local organization. We have one here in Dane County who works specifically with this. We have other chapters throughout the state. But just texting SMART to 64433 will get that ball rolling. Really great opportunities to volunteer. We have many different styles, or, folks who maybe are more comfortable doing things behind the scenes, or folks who are more comfortable going into the schools and having those meetings with superintendents or whoever it might be. We have a whole variety of options. So I think if people are interested and maybe a little hesitant, or, gosh, I don't have a lot of time, we're all volunteers. So, we devote as much time as we can. And sometimes that's a lot. And sometimes it's like, whoa, I need to step back. There's a lot going on. So it's a really great group. It's a really supportive group. And we would love to have more people reach out and talk to us.
Okay, wonderful. And if somebody is a member of a school community and wants this information brought to them, what do they do with that? How do they get in touch with you or with somebody else?
That's a great question. I think, again, texting SMART to 64433, that will give them some contact information. Be Smart does have a website too. It's besmartforkids.org. And so there is a section on there too, if you want to reach out and get that connection with our Dane County group.
And if they go to besmartforkids.org, would they be able to gather the information that you just said and start those conversations with people around them?
Yeah, there's a lot of resources on that website. So if folks do check that out, there's tons of information on there. Everything from, maybe a lot of written information, but also social media graphics, really quick stats that can be shared. So they can certainly pull that off, send it to a school district, send it to their church or whatever organization it might be. And then if they want additional support, we are happy to do that. We have folks who are trained to give. We have a 20-minute Be Smart community presentation available. So we are happy to do that. Would love to partner in any way.
Okay. Wonderful. Awesome. That's what I'm looking for is if you're like thinking I need to get involved in this way, this would be such a great way that is kind of a low barrier to just start creating conversations and create conversations with whatever communities that you are already in, because it absolutely could be life-saving.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Katie, for taking the time to share this with us and help get more badasses out there in the community.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Spirit of a Badass is a Lit Path Studios podcast and is produced by Jamie Gale and Alecia Jacobson. Music by Shane Ivers. We'll be back with another inspiring interview. Until then, keep your spirits high and your energy badass.